percent overall from the field, but he was also 50% from threes. He's 5 of 10.
I know you're out there. It's okay. Stand back there.
No, more than likely, you're going to get that number 1 seed. And so I want Houston to be ranked at number 1 in
Hey, it's Andy Yanez here for another episode of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. We're off the heels of yet another Houston Cougars victory, this time in the American Athletic Conference Tournament semifinals. The 1-seeded Houston Cougars were victorious over the 4-seeded Cincinnati Bearcats. Houston won 69-48 over Cincinnati in the tournament semifinals. Of course, Jamal Shead had 16 points and 9 assists. Juwan Roberts had 16 points and 8 rebounds. But the story of the game was Marcus Sasser, who at the 7-minute mark, or just under the 7-minute mark, hovering around that, suffered a groin injury. And really, he was going to cross over to go to his left. When he crossed over and planted his leg, he just fell on the floor. He was clearly in pain, almost immediately started grabbing towards his left thigh groin area and did not return to the game. Now, of course, after Houston's game over Cincinnati, head coach Kelvin Sampson spoke to reporters, and he said that they would err on the side of caution when it came to Sasser, but he didn't really have any specific updates. He said they were still evaluating him, and obviously that's going to be something to keep an eye on, not only when it comes to the American Athletic Conference Championship game, which will be either of Memphis or Tulane, but looking ahead next week and beyond for the NCAA tournament, because Houston could be playing as soon as Thursday. And of course, joining me as always, Kris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review Day on to join in a second. Kris, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing very well, my man. How are you?
I'm doing great. For those that might be tuning in and might notice they're watching live on the Houston Round Ball Review YouTube channel, that we are from I'm at Dickies Arena. Kris, you're back at the hotel room. Hopefully it's not too noisy with the background, but this is Let's Rage Coogs streaming from the American Athletic Conference Tournament on the American Athletic Conference Tournament. But let's get right into it. I mean, first, how big of a concern it has to be for Marcus Sasser? It's got to be huge, obviously, not only for a championship game, but beyond, especially if it's a groin, because with groin, the biggest things, those injuries, it comes with lateral movement. Is something that was mentioned during the ESPN broadcast.
Well, when he first did it, he did the splits awkwardly. My first concern was his knee, and
that's something.
He was on the floor for a while in pain, and John Houston, the Houston shaman, went out and talked to him, and when Marcus got up and walked slowly to the bench, it wasn't his knee, and looked like it was a groin injury. And from my seat courtside, I was straight across from John Houston and Marcus Sasser, and John was talking to Marcus, and it wasn't a knee. And then moments later, they walked to the training area to the back, and we found out minutes later that it was a groin strain that the school announced, the UH basketball program announced, and that Marcus was not going to return to the game, which I didn't doubt at all. I knew he wasn't going to come back. I thought he plays tomorrow. Not necessary for him to play tomorrow. The Cougs already locked into the 1 seed. Let's question what region they're going to be in. And if he's not close to 100%, he won't play Thursday. And he shouldn't play Thursday. I didn't believe he'd do that anyway. Coach Sampson has never been one of those coaches who will play players just for the sake of a winning game at the risk of their health. So if Marcus can't go Thursday, he won't play Thursday. The Cougs should beat the team on Thursday, 16 seed, if they're playing in Birmingham, of course, on the Thursday, Saturday first round site. And if he can't go second round, he can't go second round. It'll be more difficult for Houston to win. But this is the issue about basketball dealing with human beings. Injuries are a part of basketball. They're part of sports. You never know when they happen. You hate that it happened at this point in time, but it's all about Marcus and his health going forward, and him being healthy as possible for his future.
No, and what I was going to add on to your point, something that Kelvin Sampson reiterated to us in the post-game news conference, he knows for sure that it's not a knee injury. It does seem like it's going to be that groin area for Sasser. Now, like I said again at the top of the show, it's going to be Houston's going to be erring on the side of caution, and Sampson said that the biggest concern for Houston, kind of the biggest thing for Houston, is Marcus Sasser's health. Again, not only heading into Sunday's championship game, but into the NCAA tournament. Now, at this point, a lot of it is still yet to be determined on how severe potentially a groin injury could be. But if it is a groin strain, I mean, you could potentially see him out. I mean, 2 to 3 weeks could be something that really, at some stretch, depending on the severity, is kind of a timetable.
Well, if it's a groin pull, look, 4 weeks, something like that. Depends on the person, depends on Marcus, all those kind of things. And it depends on how light the strain or sprain is. John Houston will do whatever he can to make sure Marcus is healthy and good to go and clear to play, however long that takes. If Marcus can't go in the first round, Houston will try to win without him. If he can't go in the second round, Houston will try to win without him. If he can't go in regionals, same thing. The Cougars are just because if Marcus can't play, as Coach Sampson mentioned to us in the press conference, post-game press conference, they're still going to keep score, which means Houston will still try to win. So they'll do the best they can with Marcus, without Marcus.
Yeah, and that's a great pivotal point. That's something that Juwan Roberts told reporters outside of the Houston locker room after he got followed by a swarm of media after they did the American Athletic Conference availability that they had to do. But he said, they've been in this position before, and again, both Coach Sampson and Juwan Roberts said, don't get them wrong, they're a much better team with Marcus Sasser, but they feel like they can continue going, and they're comfortable being able to play without Sasser. Now, hopefully, from Houston perspective, that is not something that they have to do for the foreseeable future. Certainly not for an extended period of time heading into the NCAA tournament. But kind of segueing from Sasser's injury, the one thing that we do need to talk about is the Houston Cougars' victory over Cincinnati, and really the main storyline of Friday's game against East Carolina in the quarterfinals was out of character. That was kind of the key phrase that both Coach Kelvin Sampson and the players used to describe that game over East Carolina. Well, it was immediately from the get-go, from the jump against Cincinnati. You could tell that Houston had more fire. They were playing, looked like they were swarming all over the court. And before that Sasser injury, you could tell that Houston was playing on a different gear. I mean, just think about it. First two possessions for Houston, not only did they end up scoring with Juwan Roberts, but 2 offensive rebounds after they got held to only 7 on 41 misses against East Carolina on Friday.
Juwan was much more active early. The team was much more active. The energy was much more part of the Coug culture in the first half. So they played up to the Houston Cougar culture in that first half. Defense was locked in, much better on the rebounding, and it led to their hot start. They shot 50% as a team today compared to 28% Friday, and they did a great job defensively on the Bearcats. Houston did not shoot the ball well from three, but Andy, in the couple of years we've known each other, how old school I am. When I see a domination of 38-12 in the paint, that's my kind of basketball. Jarris Walker and Juwan Roberts beat up the Bearcats down low, and that's what I like to see.
Absolutely. And specifically to kind of get the game started with Juwan Roberts, that's something that Kelvin Sampson said they designed it. Something Juwan Roberts said after the game too. They designed the opening play to go to Roberts and really kind of get him going again after the bit of a rough game he had against East Carolina in the quarterfinals.
And also Jarris Walker posting up Landers Nolly. I'm not sure who was sitting next to me in the first half. They were covering, it might have been Memphis guys, but they were like, Cincinnati cannot be serious. Nolly on Walker in the post? No way. No way. And when Jarris scored in the post with the floater, they're like, this is barbecue chicken, man. This isn't going to work. So as long as the Bearcats did it, Houston took advantage of it. Jarris had a solid first half and had a very good game overall.
No, absolutely. And then again, top to bottom, it just seemed like Houston was exploiting Cincinnati in the paint. And real quickly, I do want to bring up a comment by Apollo Laxius. Yes, that was me and Dusty that you saw behind the TV broadcast during the ESPN crew in tonight's game against Cincinnati, today's game against Cincinnati, but kind of quickly digressing real quick. But absolutely, that was really the key, and not only for the forwards in and of themselves, but even Javier Francis got a couple of post touches as well during the game. Reggie Chaney off pick and roll action, and kind of the key player from the backcourt perspective was Jamal Shed, who was kind of orchestrating everything. And Chris, you're part of the news conference after the game. Both Jawan Roberts and Jarvis Walker had high praise for their point guard. It's something that we're gonna have the soundbite for later in the game, but you could tell how much they love it. And what really stood out to me is again the true word point guard. They said that Shed does a good job at not only telling them what needs to be done, but also orchestrating them and telling them where they need to go on the floor. And just going back a few days ago when Kelvin Sampson talked about the importance of the point guard position under him, really being able to be that offensive coordinator on the court.
And one of the cool things about us getting to sit courtside is we can hear the action, see a little bit closer, hear the profanity and things of that sort as well. The small talk, the chatter, Jamal directing teammates where to go, play sets, all those things. Jamal is a point guard. He is a true point guard, telling teammates where to be, calling the plays, pointing them out. You're in the wrong spot. Get over here. Get to the left. Get to the right. I'm going to say this. Being critical of freshman Terrence Arsenault, there were times in the second half Terrence was processing the play calls. So he's still not reacting to what's called play called and then just going nowhere to be. So there were a few times he was in the wrong spot. So I could see teammates, Terrence, go over here. Terrence, you're in the wrong spot. Terrence, what are you doing? Kind of thing. So he's still trying to process all those things as a freshman. He'll figure it out eventually. But his defense was solid. Emmanuel Sharp did a better job moving his feet defensively instead of playing defense with his hands. Terrence had some good rebounds, had a good floater, attack off the dribble. So he played much better. And I think both of them will get more minutes Sunday in the title game, assuming Marcus will not play.
But real quickly, we want to take a quick break. Of course, we'd like to thank everybody that's watching live on the Houston Round Ball Review YouTube channel. Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. The Saxenian Family is the primary sponsor of Let's Rage Coogs. Hold on there, Chris. You can't take my spotlight while I
There
do
you go. There you go. There you go.
Yeah. Promos. But of course, we want to say thank you to the Saxenian Family for being the season-long primary sponsor and really being the biggest support for Let's Rage Coogs throughout the entire men's basketball season. Of course, they will be the primary sponsor for the remainder of the postseason. However many games are left for the Houston Cougars, the Saxenian Family will be the primary sponsor of Let's Rage Coogs. But of course, we also want to say thank you to our other partners for today's episode of LRC, beginning with Star Pizza. Star Pizza is Houston's best pizza since 1976 with multiple locations across the Houston area. Be sure to make Star Pizza your go-to stop for pizza, because we all know that that's a great snack after seeing the Houston Cougars, not even snack, great meal after seeing the Houston Cougars defeat Cincinnati for the third time this season. Like I said, with 3 different locations across the Houston area. Be sure to visit them online at starpizza.net to check out their online menu. So not only you know what you want once you get to the restaurant, but you can even order online so you can pick up and be ready on the go. Once again, that's starpizza.net. And of course, we also like to say thank you to our other partner for today's episode of Let's Rage Cougs, and that is BB's Tex Orleans. BB's is the home of Tex Orleans cooking with multiple locations across the Houston area. Be sure to visit them online at bbstexorleans.com, where similar, you can also check out their menus. They cater, they have different news and events, and like I said, multiple locations across the Houston area. They are Tex Orleans type of food, Cajun-inspired New Orleans themed restaurant with a unique Texas twist. Of course, once again, that's BB's Orleans. BB's Orleans. That's bbOrleans.com. And be sure to visit them on all social media platforms on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at BB's Tex Orleans. Of course, Thank you to both of Star Pizza and BB's for being a sponsor in today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. Joining us, Dayon Dunlap. Dayon, welcome to the show. We kind of touched on it before you hopped on, but quick initial, really kind of diving into Jamal Shead, initial reactions and how much of a good of an orchestrator he was for Houston and the play from the bigs in Jawan Roberts and Jarvis Walker.
I think it's just typical of Houston point guard play that we're accustomed to seeing as Houston fans. Elite point guard play, which started of recent years from Galen to Dejan and now Jamal. He's continuing that trend and just controlling the game, really from a mental aspect. You're really watching that game, it shows how every single possession matters. And offensively and defensively, he's kind of the leader and the catalyst of ensuring that they capitalize and make the most out of every possession. And he did what he normally does: distributes, he scores, he really did whatever the team needs. And so Jamal Shead, the driver of the bus, as I should say, as some people like to say. I mean.
Rook, I am muted, but one of the, obviously, like we said at the top of the show when it came to Houston and the loss of Marcus Sasser, but really two players that we really got to see much more minutes of was in Emmanuel Sharp and Terrence Arsenault. And Arsenault in particular kind of got a moment to be able to got on the floor for more minutes, and someone that head coach Kevin Sampson had high praise for post game, in particular when it comes to what he was able to do. Well, he highlighted both Sharp and Arsenault for how they played defense against, obviously, the guards of Cincinnati, specifically in Landers Nolly, David DeJulius. But just overall, they did well in terms of being able to impact the game with the areas that the Houston Cougars love to kind of build their culture around, which is rebounding and, of course, playing to that culture and defensively as well.
Yeah, Terrence Arsenault got 28 minutes in the game today. That's got to be a season high for him. 3 rebounds as well. He was active defensively. He did a good job attacking offensively as well. He wasn't tentative. He was only 1 for 5 from the floor, but he had good looks and he wasn't hesitant on the shot. So it's good to see him with more confidence.
From the get-go, it looked like he stepped into a shot. He was ready to catch and shoot, and he let it fly. Even though it didn't go in, it didn't really affect him.
And he'll get minutes Sunday, which should help him with confidence and being more certain of the offense and where to be in the sets and things of that sort once the big dance starts in a few days.
Terrence needs to make shots. I mean, just being blunt and forward, he needs to make shots, especially if he's going to play more minutes. He needs to make more shots. I mean, I don't say the team needs it, but I think the team can need it, especially if Marcus isn't there. But I'm going to speak as if he is there because I don't know the extent of his injury, and I want to manifest that he's healthy and that he's going to be healthy and ready to go. But Terrence, I mean, we can talk over and over on how he's really good defensively. He gives effort, he gives energy, and he rebounds. But I mean, part of the game is making shots, putting the ball in the hoop, and he struggled have doing that probably most of this season. And so, I mean, I know, and I always reiterate, there's more ways to impact the game than scoring, because Sampson really talks about it a lot. And he definitely does that. But going forward, I'm assuming Marcus is there, but maybe if he's foul in trouble, people in foul trouble, Houston may need Terrence to make shots. Of course, Emmanuel, I think he's proven to be a shot maker, and he's getting more and more comfortable in not only just being a shot maker, but kind of creating off the dribble and getting more inside. And so I like that aspect of them. You can get some offense from Emmanuel, but I think Terrence, his upside is tremendous. I think a lot of the playing time he's getting is because of his upside. He's watching his game. In my opinion, not to question Coach Sampson, because he knows his team and his players way better than I do. And I would admit he knows the game of basketball more than I do. But in my opinion, I think Ramon could give everything that Terrence has gave throughout this season, plus more. I think he's better defensively. I think he has a similar motor to Nate Hidden. I think just every time he plays, there's no people taking more charges, more just all the different things that he does that Ramon could do. And I think he can shoot just as bad as Terrence has shot, or even better. And so just my take on it. But I love what the freshmen are going to give. They're going to give the culture, quote unquote culture plays, but they need them to make shots.
They need them to make shots. That's a unique take you're bringing, Dayon, because Emmanuel Sharp has struggled to make shots since January. Okay, I glanced at his shots, his stats. He shot 50% twice in 12 games. So he's struggling to make shots. His defense has gotten better, but 0 for 2, 4 for 9, 2 for 8, 1 for 7, 1 for 8, 0 for 2, 1 for 3, 2 for 4, 1 for 6, 1 for 5 today against Cincinnati. So his shot, we haven't seen Jaja or any other Coug fans talk about him being a sniper because he's not making shots. So that part of his game has fallen while his defense has gotten better. Terrence was not really a shooter in high school. I think he was a center and a shot blocker in high school at United, and he's changing position. So he's got nice form on his shot. His hand kind of turns sideways, which hurts the follow through and rotation on his shot. But Terrence is getting better. Coach Sampson believes that Terrence has a very good shot. He's trying to give him the confidence to become a better shooter and more confident to take the shot. But Emmanuel is struggling to make shots as well. But especially with Marcus, if Marcus doesn't play tomorrow, which we don't believe he will, it may not play Thursday. He may give it a go Thursday or Friday, whichever Cougs have scheduled. They're going to need Emmanuel and I'll say Terrence. But as long as Jarris, Juan, Jamal, Tremon's missing, struggling to make shots lately too. Tremon's played better in other aspects, but his shot making has not been great. But to all those guys, they're doing different things to impact winning. I mean, keep in mind, we talked about it yesterday. The Cougs won yesterday, and they shot 28% from the floor and won by 14 points. So today they made 50% from the floor and won by 21 points. The Bearcats shot 25% today and missed free throws. They only had 9 turnovers today, but the Cougs defense wore them down. Post game, you could just hear the Bearcat media and Coach Wes Miller talking about the Cougs, giving Cougs credit for who they are. And Coach Miller said it. Houston played like the #1 team in the country, but also Bearcats shot themselves in the foot, missing 12 free throws, missing shots they usually make. But the Cougars' defense just wears teams down, and that's what happened today.
Yeah, of course, I've said this before. With Tremont, in my opinion, is the X factor. I think he needs to be more efficient. He's had a stretch of recent where he played well. Then he have stretches where he's inefficient. He'll make a couple shots, but they just need him to be efficient. And Emmanuel, I agree. He definitely has struggled making shots as well. But throughout the season, he's proven and put on tape that he's capable. So defenses play him differently. Exactly, versus guarding Terrence. And so the threat of him making a shot keeps the defense spread for Houston and Jamal and Drummond and even Marcus to be able to penetrate and make plays, and even Jarris for that extent. And so, I mean, everything you said, I agree with. I mean, him and Terrence and Emmanuel, just the name of my name, both need to make shots at some point. I mean, maybe the game doesn't come to that. Maybe Jamal having off the. You never know how the game may go, and they may be needed. And so, I think they need to do that. And Tremont, I think, especially if Marcus doesn't play these next couple games, we'll see the ball in Tremont's hands, especially when Jamal goes off the bench. And he kind of showed it towards the end of the game that he's more than capable of leading the offense and being a shot creator and maker. I think he's better one-on-one. I don't even say one-on-one. He's a better on the ball scorer than he's shown throughout this season because his role isn't that. But without Marcus, I think it'll be featured even more, and he will be able to shine even more.
And one thing about Emmanuel being a threat from range, teams are trying to run him off the line. So he's added lately attacks off the dribble to his game. So we're seeing different parts of his game when his three-point shot hasn't fallen. So it's good. It's another example of the Cougs development, player development throughout the season. And Tremont is also an example of that with the ball in his hands and being a creator. Coach Sampson still gets on Tremont probably more than other players for not passing the ball enough at times. But Coach Sampson has high expectations of Tremont because he believes in his ceiling for being a great passer and creator for the team. So he expects a lot from Tremont. And Marcus won't be. I mean, obviously he's going to be missed. He's All-American.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cougs, they're going to try to win tomorrow if Marcus can't go. So let me say this to the Coug fans who may get trolled by Memphis fans tomorrow, because I think Memphis is smacking Tulane around last time I saw. The Cougs, if Marcus doesn't play, if Marcus doesn't play tomorrow, the Cougs will still try to win. If you don't win tomorrow, it's not the end of the world. You can let Memphis have their we beat y'all, whatever. Cougs be a 1 seed. Memphis won't be. On to the next.
Yeah, I want to bring up a comment before you move on, Andy, in which King Jaja saying Houston plays with so much energy that it impacts their offense for the young guys. Stamina needs to improve. I'm going to have to say I disagree with that. I think their defense gives them energy on their offense. They just don't make shots. And so I don't want to question their stamina, because I think Coach Sampson and staff really conditions them well. And when I watch the game, I don't see fatigue. I don't see any moments where they look fatigued or they're not making shots because they're fatigued. It's just they're not making.
You got to be in shape to play defense as hard as they do. Truly. Shots come and go, and they could be off balance, get shots just bounce off the rim, things like that. But stamina for this team, the Houston Cougars, flip it around. You saw the Bearcats today. They were worn down. You saw East Carolina yesterday. They were worn down. The Cougs wear down opponents because of the physicality, the activity on defense. That's just how they play. Their offense, it comes and goes, but yet, we talked about it yesterday. This team shot 50% today. So they went from 28 yesterday to 50, and they still play great defense.
I'll put a pin on it right there. Real quickly, I do like to remind everybody that they're watching Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. Of course, we'd like to say a big thank you to the Saxenian Family for being the primary sponsor of LRC for the duration of the men's basketball season, for the entire men's basketball season, and heading into the remaining games. Obviously, the championship game tomorrow and the remaining NCAA tournament games, however that may be, all the way up to April 3rd. 2023. And of course, we also like to say thank you to our other partners, beginning with BB's, the home of Tex Orleans cooking. BB's Tex Orleans is a Cajun New Orleans themed restaurant with a unique Texas twist. Be sure to visit them online at bbstexorleans.com, where you can check out their various locations, their online menu, and even learn more information about different things that BB's does, such as catering your next event. And of course, we also like to say thank you to Star Pizza. They are Houston's best pizza since 1976. Be sure to visit them online at starpizza.net, where you can check out their various Star Pizza locations across the city, as well as their menu, where you can even order online, so you can just stop by and pick up on the go, or have the pizza ready for you once you get to any of the various Star Pizza locations. Once again, that's starpizza.net. And we thank both BB's and Star Pizza for being a sponsor of today's episode of Let's Rage Cougs. On that note, I want to send it over to Jawan Robertson here, what he had to say following Houston's 69-48 victory over the Cincinnati Bearcats. Houston Cougars will now be playing in the American Athletic Conference Championship game on Sunday afternoon.
Just know what our goal is. Yesterday we played not good at all, and we all got to own up to that. We're not gonna sit here and say we just played good and we blew them out like we played bad. So we got back to the hotel. We talked about it. Just made an adjustment that we can't start off like that anymore. That's how you get upset, and just getting off to good starts, it just gives us more confidence, and we just keep trying to build up that lead.
Jawan, can you talk about when Marcus Sasser went down? Coach talked about how, you guys didn't really mention it, you just kind of reacted to it. What was the response from your perspective?
Like I said, he makes us a better team, but we didn't have him last year. We didn't have Tramal last year. We still had a great year. So even though he's a big part of what we got going on right now, we still have confidence in our other players that they're gonna step up and they're just gonna step up and make the right play and grind it out.
That first play, was designed for you. After yesterday, how big was it for you to sort of get going early, and also how did that help you sort of later on in the second half stepping up that first round?
Just get back in my groove from last game. Get more confidence again, I went 0 for 5 yesterday and see the ball going one time. So, coach, specifically ran that play just for me, just to get me back in my groove. And, once I got going, I just let the game come to me instead of forcing.
Jair's talked about you being a big-time role model for him. You said he's your boy. What's that relationship like throughout this year, and how happy are you with his development and where he's come to on this team?
Yeah, it's been amazing. I remember when I first seen Jair's, and first seen him, he was a big body. I didn't know how good he was at first, but then when we started working, I'm like, this kid could be real special. And I just feel like he's sleeping in basketball. That's my roommate. We go anywhere together. I make sure he's straight, he makes sure I'm good. And like I said, that would be my little brother. Like, I'll take him under my wing anytime. And just transitioning that from off the court to on the court, I just feel like we got a bond together where it's just like, we just locked in, to whatever we're doing. And I just, pray that after this, later on in life, we keep that bond too.
Jay, how would you describe the get-together that y'all had last night? Was it emotional? Did people just lay out what's going on, what y'all wanted to accomplish? How would you describe it?
I would just say at first, just identify the problem, not trying to avoid, what we did wrong. And at this time of the year, it's not about cussing and screaming and, getting on teammates. It's just about, adjusting, just playing to our culture. And, we talked about it, and it showed today, how we just came out with that fire. It just shows once everybody's on the same page, it can be dangerous.
When Coach says that he kind of takes it upon himself, yesterday it was tough and emotional and paid for him. So I don't really know what happened, but when he says something like that, you guys respond in a way. What that give and take that you guys have developed with Coach? What's that like? And when you heard him say that today, what was your reaction?
It's so much I can say about Coach Sampson, and I don't know where to start, but that's a great man, and everything he does is out of love. That's why I never take anything personal. When he gets on me, I just know he's out of love and he want to see me do good. So, just knowing that, he wasn't his best, we all, made a decision to play for him, and just give it all, just make him feel happy even though he's having a bad day.
Once again, that was Houston Cougars forward Jawan Roberts speaking on a whole bunch of various different topics. Now, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that stood out to me, but first, the thing that was hinted at throughout the conversation about the rally around from yesterday's game against East Carolina. Really, the team I think that really shows the maturity about this team in terms of they knew that they didn't play up to their standard. That was kind of the biggest thing that they reiterated, was that they were disappointed and despite coming out with the victory over East Carolina, they felt they didn't live up to the Houston Cougars standard, and they addressed it. And again, Chris, like we hit on at the beginning of the show, they played like it from the beginning. You could tell that they had a much extra spring in their step, and they just seemed to be flying all over the court.
Agreed. And Coach Sampson, I don't know how to say it, but when he mentioned that he wasn't at his best yesterday and he did not coach as well as he should have, I'm not sure what yesterday's anniversary, if it was an anniversary or something about his parents. I don't know what the issue was, why he wasn't at his best yesterday.
According to Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle, he said that Kelvin Sampson is coached with a heavy heart, or he is coaching with a heavy heart after the death of his twin sister, Karen, on Friday, which would be yesterday.
Well, clearly, that's a big blow to him. Personally, you lose a loved one, that's a huge impact on it, and he was distracted. That's understandable. So for him to acknowledge that he did not coach his best, well, he was distracted. His teammates, his team understands that, and the meeting, the get together, the accountability, the love that Coach has for his players and vice versa is genuine. We only see glimpses of it, but they spend time with each other every day. So there is a bond there that lasts a lifetime. And they got back to the culture today, and they'll play with culture tomorrow. And if it's good enough to win tomorrow, they'll win tomorrow.
Yeah, what I took away from what Jawan said, in which plays into the brilliance of Coach Sampson, and recognizing that J1 has been out of rhythm over the last couple of games, and he identified that and made a conscious effort to draw up a couple plays for him to start the game to get into a rhythm. That's what the Coach Sampson has done throughout the season, whether it be from numerous players, from Jamal Mark to Marcus to Jamal to a lot of players, and that plays into his brilliance and how he has the pulse of his players and the pulse of his team, and knowing when to get certain players involved early, because when they don't get involved early and they don't get shots, I don't want to say lose confidence, even though he mentioned confidence. I think what he was referencing is confident in scoring, and so that you get anxious, and once you get the ball, you kind of feel anxious to score, and so I love that brilliance. And then once Marcus went down, I was kind of thinking about how Houston switched last year on how they started to play outside in last year. And I think they have the capability to do that with J1 and Jarris if need be. And so just talking as if Marcus is going to be ready for the tournament, going to manifest that, because I wish him nothing but the best wishes. But if he's hobbled any bit, Coach Sampson and his team has the ability to kind of switch and play outside in, or more in Jamal's hands, more pick and roll for him, and kind of let him dictate the game, kind of like they always do. And so I love the accountability that he mentioned that they have amongst each other, amongst the players. First thing in identifying the problem and solving the problem. Well, the first thing in solving a problem is identifying and holding each other accountable. And they mentioned that you don't run from it.
And that's one thing Coach Sampson has said to us over the years is he tries to stop a brush fire from becoming a forest fire. And they didn't play Cougar basketball yesterday. So they got together and talked amongst themselves and got back to playing Cougar basketball today. And we saw the results.
Absolutely. I think going back to hearing Roberts talk about how kind of the next man up mentality that they have, I think that's another testament that shows the extra layer of maturity that this team has about it, especially when it comes to the returning core players. Now, Dan, like you said about Marcus Sasser, hopefully it's not a long-term injury that keeps him out for an extended period of time. But just from that clip right there and how they responded during his injury against Cincinnati, Houston is not going to kind of run away and hide. Like you said, Chris, they're going to try to win tomorrow. It's going to be Memphis, and they're going to go from there. They're not going to go home just because they lost Marcus Sasser. They're going to continue to play their culture, and they're going to look for a win. Now, on the topic of Houston, they had a good kind of send-off towards Dickies Arena this morning from the fans. There was a large contingent of fans that showed up to where the Houston Cougars are staying at here in Fort Worth, and before they headed towards Dickies Arena, they lined up and they cheered on Houston as they got on the bus to head over to Dickies Arena. Now, Chris, you asked Coach Sampson about it. Here's what he had to say about that. I think it might have been clipped off, so I'll put a pin on the clip. But he did give an interesting response because he talked about how Houston didn't have that a season ago, and he made sure that was different this year.
Yeah, he sure did. And this is our show. We're all adults here. He said he called marketing last year and got in their ass to do a better job of marketing promotions. And we saw more red in the building. You talked about the send-off today for the team before a semifinal game. So Coach Sampson, once he wants to get things done, he speaks from the chest and he will get things done.
Man, what an ambassador to have on your program, that he knows what it takes for all sports, especially going forward in the Big 12 and what they need to compete at a high level. So not only does he set the standard for his team, he sets the standard for all sports, and he's able to speak into what all sports is going to need to be able to compete at the level that his basketball program has reached. And so Houston is blessed to have Coach Sampson and his family as part of this university. And so I'm not surprised one bit that he made the call for something that he felt was important, administrating the answer. And that goes back into, like he said, from his own mouth and when he took the job. He needed notice changes and what needed to transpire. He made the call, and some of those changes have happened. They continue to change. And so Coach Sampson, I don't know him personally, but J1 just said it. He's a great man, and he seems as if he is.
Guys, I'm not sure where to go with this. I don't want to get on my box about King Jaja's comment here about it shouldn't take that though. We have to do better as fans supporting this team as a city. Damn, brother, you know where I'm going with this. I've said it for years. For years, UH alums, and I'm an alum. So if you're new to the show, be clear on that. I am an alum. For years, too many of us did not come to games, or only come to games to see the opponent rather than see Houston in football, basketball, baseball, whatever. Coach Sampson has called out the apathy of the fans and administration since he got here. We're still trying to do a better job with the fan support. There's still too many fans that only want to see Memphis or only want to see Team X rather than Houston. So Big 12 is coming. It's around the corner. And you know what, damn, Andy, what if fans got fans excited? Seeing Baylor come to town. Seeing TCU come to town. Seeing Texas Tech come to town and that team in burnt orange, blah, 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 blah. That's why the program at Houston suffered, because of the apathy for so many years about, well, I'm not going to see the Cougs play, but because who are they playing? They're playing teams like Memphis. They're playing teams like UCF. They're playing teams like USF. Are you an alum of Houston? Yes. Then spend your money, your time to support your university. That's one thing Coach Sampson repeatedly says. And yes, it still takes time for marketing, because marketing for years did a piss poor job of staying in contact with alums in the city. Guys, I'm going to say this, and I'll stop. I didn't realize this until a few days ago. There are almost 200,000 UH alums in Greater Houston. 200,000. And yet, Andy Diana, how many football season tickets do we have?
Not a sellout. I think the last time I checked, it had been somewhere
like 20,000 maybe?
Yeah,
maybe
somewhere
20?
between 20 and 30. I don't know the exact number. It had been ticked off. It had ticked off after the Big 12 announcement to the Big 12.
So again, nearly 200,000 UH alums in Greater Houston, and yet it's like pulling teeth to get alums to support the university where they got their education and their degree.
I second that. Not much to add. I second that.
Absolutely. And again, it takes a leader like Kelvin Sampson to be able to get gears to change from behind the scenes. And again, it's kind of just a peek behind the curtain of where the program was 9 years ago, going back to 2014 when he first took over the men's basketball program. Now we'll segue. I'll have one final clip, which is of Kelvin Sampson giving the final update on Marcus Sasser. And then you're going to hear Jarvis Walker and Jawan Roberts talking about the importance of Jamal Shedd and how he impacted tonight's game.
If a young man wants to play him, or do you err? And I know this is a hard question to answer, but in terms of his status, how would you approach, going in?
I would probably err on the side of holding him out because of how important next week is. We've won a lot, but the most important thing is Marcus, not winning. That will always be the case with me. His health going forward is the most important thing here. But regardless of whether Marcus is here tomorrow, they're going to keep scoring, right? Or if they keep scoring, you have to try to win. That's what we'll try to do, whether he plays or not.
John, if I could sneak this one in, the meeting that you said you guys had, was that a product of the game?
I'm sorry, say it again.
The meeting that you had with the team, was that a product of yesterday's game or just this time of year, that kind of deal in terms of wanting to maybe get back? Is it getting back on the same page?
Yeah, it's multiple. You know, as a coach, you're constantly coaching. Most of my coaching is not during the games. Coaching during a game is like you writing a story. I mean, I've coached 1,000 games. They're all the same to me. You just react to them. But getting young men to the starting line with their best stuff, and they need to know how much you believe in them too. I mean, my kids are my kids. Nobody else knows them like I know them. You know, because you interview somebody doesn't give you the right to know them. Just, I mean, our kids are very tuned in to this program. That's why you very rarely ever see kids transfer from here unless they want to go play. If they want to go play, then we're the first one to help them find the right place for them. But Jay-Wan's in his 4th year. Was recruited as a freshman. Jarris recruited as a freshman. Marcus a freshman. Jamal a freshman. Did I say Tremont a freshman? Terrence a freshman. Emmanuel, JVA. All these kids came in here as freshmen. The only kid that transferred from another school that plays is Reggie. Reggie's been here 3 years. He's on the Final Four team. He's on the Elite 8 team. Now he's on the team that's 31-2. So our kids fit, but that's not by accident. That's not an accident that they stay. It's not an accident that they fit. That's why evaluation is far more important than recruiting for me.
Okay, final question, please.
For Jarris and Jawan, can you talk about how Jamal Shead impacted you guys tonight? Obviously, he had 9 assists and was a key part in the game.
I mean, just the way he leads our team. Like, he's definitely our leader, our go-to guy. I mean, we just kind of follow as he goes. He kind of sets a tone in the game with his defense. I mean, as a playmaker, it just makes the game so easy for us. Puts us in the right spot, gets us the ball where we want it, when we want it. So, I mean, he's the perfect point guard. And I just love the fact that he plays on both ends as well. So, I mean, he's just everything you're looking for in a guard.
And just the intensity that he comes out with. Just the way, you know, sometimes he'll call a play and you might not know what we're doing. You know, he's the one to, you know, let everybody know what to do. You know, if he sees a mismatch or he sees something he can, you know, go at, you know, he does that and we just feed off that, you know. And I just feel like the most important thing is just having a point guard that, you know, that you trust to make the right play every time. You know, he's not going to force none. You know, he's not going to do too much. He just stays solid, you know, and we just feed off that and as he go, we go.
So once again, there at the beginning of the clip, you heard head coach Kelvin Sampson. Then you heard Jarris Walker and Jawan Roberts. They were talking about the importance of Jamal Shead and how he impacted them in this game against Cincinnati. Kris, I'll toss it over to you for any final takeaways of Houston's game against the Bearcats and looking ahead at Memphis. It'll be the 3rd time that Houston plays the Tigers in a short period over the span of the past month.
Yeah, the first game?
February 18th was the first meeting.
So the last 3 Sundays, isn't that right? About right. But the Cougs more aggressive in the first half, got back to the culture, looked inside early, went to Jawan. Jawan got some offense rebounds, putbacks, things like that. Jarris, they attacked Landers Nolly in the post, so it's good to see. I'm looking forward to another Houston-Memphis competitive basketball game. Kendrick Davis, John J. Williams are playing very well for the Tigers right now. It should be a fun game. Should be a competitive game. A lot of trash talk both ways, but both teams are going to the NCAA tournament, and then we'll go on from there. But looking forward to Sunday's matchup. Cougs are going to try to win, whether Marcus plays or not. They got enough to do it. Make shots, defend, rebound. They can still win tomorrow. If they don't, they'll still be a 1 seed.
Jamal is the perfect point guard. I mean, all the reasons that they listed, I agree wholeheartedly, but I can't wait for that point guard matchup tomorrow with Kendrick Davis. That's the matchup I can't wait to see. Both players are similar, honestly, especially with their skill sets. I think Kendrick probably is a little better three-point shooter, but they both – yeah, and I don't think Kendrick Davis gets enough recognition for defense and his effort on defense. I watched him, and he really, really competes on defense. He takes it upon himself to really guard. So I can't wait for that matchup. Man, it's going to be a good one. I'm expecting Tremont, like he usually does to have a big game against Memphis. I think it's going to be apparent for him to showcase what he can do and not really be too aggressive. I think, Kris, you're right. Coach Sampson is hard on Tremont, and for me on the outside looking in, especially knowing what Tremont is capable of, and Coach Sampson knowing what Tremont is capable of, I think it's trying to get Tremont to have a habit of doing all the other things on the court outside of scoring, because that way when it's time to put the ball in his hands and really, really let him loose, Coach Sampson knows what he's capable of and what he's going to do. But when he does all the other things, like defend, rebound, get deflections, and make the right play, and then you add on top when you put the ball in his hands what he can do, it's just only gonna help Houston take off more, whether it be this year, next year, whatever the case may be. But I love this guard play. I love both of the posts, J1 and Jarris. They complement each other so well. Jarris, early in that game, J1 got a first offensive rebound to put back, and then that second one he got was because of Jarris. Jarris went up in his activity. He didn't grab the ball, but got a tip, and it tipped right to J1. He's able to get his second bucket early, but they both are capable of taking over games. And so Houston, I think Coach Sampson probably would agree that it's important that they get production from their front court offensively. I think it's important that they do that and not rely so much on their guards. I think it is a guard game, and when the game comes down to crunch time, the guards will have to step up. But over the full 40 minutes of the game, I think it's apparent that they have some front court production from their post players.
And let's answer real quick, Andy. Let's answer King's question about this. I think the Cougs will be in the West region and be going to Vegas. I think they will be in Birmingham first two rounds, but they will be in the West region. That's what I think.
Kris, I think they're going to be in the Midwest region if Texas holds on and beats Kansas, because currently they're winning by 8 points in the Big 12 tournament championship game. So I think if Kansas loses again and Houston wins tomorrow, that's the caveat. If Houston wins tomorrow, which maybe it might not even matter by the time the game's over and the selection committee's made up its mind, I could see Houston being standing pat as a number 2 overall seed in the NCAA tournament.
We'll see. I mean, logically, yes, they should be in Kansas City if the Jayhawks lose the Longhorns. But I think the debate with the committee members, it really does depend on what the consensus values more. The metrics, where the Cougs are number 1 in almost all of them, or the amount of quad 1 victories. So that's what the discussion is going to come down to. So, I mean, I've got a result made in my mind. They're going to tab KU as number 1 and send them to Kansas City regional, and the Cougs could be in the Vegas region. I don't agree with it, but that's what I'm expecting to happen.
Dan, what's your prediction?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't have a prediction. I think that both scenarios can play out. I mean, I agree with both of y'all. I think one scenario could happen where Kris could be right, and I think one scenario could happen where you're right. So I honestly don't really have a prediction. I just know they're going to be at the tournament number 1 seed. And so, I can't call it because like Kris just said, there's different – you don't know which metrics and all of that stuff the committee is going to take into account. And so it's beyond me. I'm not the person to talk to about that. I don't know about that one.
Dan, where can people find you, and any last thoughts as we close things out here on Let's Reach Coogs?
As usual, you can find me at all social media platforms at Dayon Dunlap, like the shows on the screen before. I'm excited for the game tomorrow. I can't wait for Houston to come out and be victorious. And I think it's going to be even. First time Houston played Memphis, they didn't have their best player. Now Houston potentially might not have their best player. And so I want to see how Houston responds, particularly their other role players who's going to step up in his absence. I expect the front court to have a bigger impact, but I also expect Memphis to play J1 like they did in their last matchup, with double teaming him every time he touches it. So I think Jarris must have a big game.
And I'm Kris Gardner, Houston Roundball Review on Twitter there at the HR Review, Houston Roundball Review on YouTube and Instagram at HoustonRoundballReview.com. Less than half a minute to go, trying to see if Texas Southern can punch their ticket to the big dance. They got like a 4-point lead over 2-seed Grambling State. Texas Southern came into the SWAC tournament as the 8th seed, and they are seconds away from going back to the big dance. So we'll see if they can hold on and get the victory. And that would, if that happens, the third ward basketball duo will be back dancing again.
People can find me on Twitter at @Yanez_5. Once again, I'd like to thank the Saxenian family for being the primary sponsor of Let's Rage Coogs, and of course our other partners for today's episode in BB's and of course Star Pizza. Once again, the final score from Fort Worth inside of the Dickies Arena, the Houston Cougars came out victorious over Cincinnati 69-48 in the American Athletic Conference Tournament semifinals. Jamal Shedd had 16 points and 9 assists, while Juwan Roberts had 16 points and 8 rebounds. Jarvis Walker had 13 points, and he also added in a handful of rebounds as well. He had 8. Now, when it comes to Houston in the American Athletic Conference Championship game, of course, they will be facing off against the Memphis Tigers, who are just under 4 or 5 minutes. Still over 4 minutes, but it's just all until the time expires. They'll be heading into the championship game as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Houston and Memphis plays out. Until then, thank you on behalf of Chris, Dayon. Thank you guys, all of you guys, for joining in. And as always, we'll see you on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening for whatever happens between Houston and Memphis and wherever Houston may be seated from the selection show. Dayon, as always, you get to close it out, sir.
Go Coogs.